The following is a conversation with Alejandro Aboy, senior data engineer at WorkPath, where he owns the whole data stack and is also the architect of the WorkPath AI companion. Also, he is a prolific writer under his own The Pipe and the Line publication.
When I particularly realized that I needed this is that we were getting random feedback from customers complaining about stuff.
The application itself starts to fail because, as you explained, you hit context limitations. Okay.
It went really adversarial and heavy on this too, because I saw 200k dollar tokens on a single trace, which was from a 20 message conversation.
So basically, online evals are dangerous.
Yeah, that's the conclusion I'm learning.
Working at WorkPath, what business problem you actually try to solve? Like what's your target audience? What's your product? Where all of this began?
So WorkPath, it's well, I'm going to do it with the marketing speech, but then I'm going to break it down. It's the
Yeah, please do an engineering speech.
the straightforward speech. It's a holistic end-to-end strategy execution SaaS. So basically, when you set up your strategic pillars, KPIs, OKRs, and initiatives around them, you can use WordPad for your team or teams and whole company to track all this end-to-end alignment between all different parts of the company and how all the progress for that strategy execution is going on.
Okay.
And that is the marketing speech, the more engineering stuff when it comes to what the agent is solving. In small companies, it's quite easy to set up some objectives and maybe connect something like Jira or Microsoft Planner or that kind of project management tools to track what initiatives you are pursuing. But then when the companies start getting more enterprise size, more like even bigger, when we are talking about thousands of employees, it gets really hard to keep everything aligned and making sure that when someone decides to track an objective, it has some sort of relationship with what the company on the higher level is pursuing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is more like the grounded explanation and what the problem is. Even though the SaaS tool can give you everything to solve this, you get into the click loophole where you need to touch a lot of stuff if you want to keep things consistent. And then you have teams adopting it a lot. Then you have teams that touch it every 3 weeks or every 2 months, depending on the pace. And the approach of the agent, the WordPad agent, the companion, is to speed up this process because it has all the tools that the app has. So
Okay.
it can do this end-to-end scans, help you to pick up risks faster, how to align stuff, and how to keep your progress up to date. And that's the main idea of more like an AI native approach that WordPad is taking.
I will put it in my words just to see that I understood. Is like a Jira, a Notion, a Linear that kinda is proactive and pushes and makes teams to constantly align with the company's goals, so that they make sure they don't go off track and use all kinds of strategies to keep teams on track.
That the agent help you find all the blind spots that you won't find clicking 1,000 times.
When have you realized while you were developing your AI application that you actually need monitoring and evals? You realize in the beginning or just later on?
Okay, so I started this project is around 1 year and a half, let's say. And the main WordPad agent project, which is known as the WordPad companion, it took 6 months for me to realize that I needed something as observability. It was in beta testing, since customers are quite enterprisey. It takes more time for the adoption and the compliance and legal stuff to make AI generated content go through. And And when I particularly realized that I needed this is that we were getting feedback, random feedback from customers complaining about stuff. And I couldn't find patterns, or I couldn't realize how many customers or users, in this case, were having the same issues. So I could kind of cluster them and figure out what to pay attention to. In the beginning, you don't have that much adoption, but when you start having traction, you have a lot of silent, you have a lot of silent problems that you, okay, no one is complaining, that's fine, but the fact that they are not complaining doesn't really mean that there's no issue going on, because AI with non-determinism creates that possibility. I mean, I knew because we have the database tracking for the sessions, so I knew.
Okay.
I knew that the usage was there, so I was confident that it wasn't like kind of dementia. Or, no, they are using it, and we are not tracking it.
That's amazing.
I mean, I come from analytics, web analytics engineering, so putting the most basic analytics and tracking in place is kind of natural to me, even if you just launch something. But observability with AI is something different. So we have a lot of challenges, of course, and that's where the evals started to show up. But yeah, we will discuss it further. But right now, the agent is, at some point we were evaluating a lot. Then we started to cut down to the real risky things. I'm getting to a kind of a tipping point where I'm trying to switch into a multi-agent architecture.
Yeah, we'll be really interested into diving into that, because I really think that's like a big problem, not with evals, but with LLMs and AI nowadays, that because code is so cheap, you always have this temptation to do really complex stuff and build too much. And you always end up in that scenario where you just need to cut down. Do you think that monitoring and especially evals actually changed and helped you improve the performance of your application? Or
Yes.
it helped you more stop fires?
Okay. Yeah, I like the two opposites. No, I mean, it's really hard to track like return on investment in these things, because unless you are evaluating tokens or you are evaluating that kind of more deterministic stuff, it's really hard to say, okay, the evals are scoring better, are passing, and not failing anymore after these changes. That's a good proxy. But what I really noticed, and this changed recently, is that evals help me capture all these blind, non-complaining users that were having issues. And since I will deep dive on this, but since I try to pass enriched context with all the tools that the agent call, not just the output response, but all the actual harness execution around the trace, I pass that to the evals, so I get way more on the eval performance than just the response, and that allowed me to fix prompts way better, but also fix how the tools doc strings are set, so it reduces ambiguity for the agent.
Okay,
and that's really cool. Putting fires, not that much, because of the latency to react is not as okay. The production application is down, so
you're not like forced that you need to fix it now. So often you end up in a situation where you build a new feature and you don't have the data to
bucket
or the evals to actually run any evaluations on top of it, so you can compute a score you can evaluate against. It's so much friction to get to that point that you very often say, okay, I don't have time for this, I will do that later, which never happens.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
Something else comes up and then you forget about it. Yeah,
Now let's get to the core idea of the case study, which is evaluation-driven
I
development.
can explain you the high level, and then if you want, like, we can go with the screen share with some examples and that kind of thing. Um, Basically, I think when we did the guest post, I think it was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Um, I still hold many of those statements and takes on the fact that many many approaches to AI observability are grounded in define define a generic evaluator, not even an LLM as a judge most of the time. Just use the typical, like, relevance scores, and that kind of hallucination, anti-hallucination score, that kind of thing. And then you just create a synthetic data set and run an experiment. And most of the time, that ends there. Okay, you run the experiment, good scores, bad scores, and I don't see too much culture around. Okay, uh, what's the aftermath of doing that approach? And every time I try synthetic data sets, I was losing everything else that the agent was doing beyond the response. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
so earlier I was mentioning this enriched metadata on the trace output. When I talk about enriched, I mean you could have a good framework. The one I use, which is Agno, already allows you to add the tool historicals and the tool outputs in the OpenTelemetry trace. So
Okay.
in that sense, you have it kind of built in into the framework OpenTelemetry integration. But then most of the SDKs will have a really good Opik integration with the span tracking and all the trace tracking. But then you will see input and output, and that's mostly. Then you need to do some custom span updates or more enriching with Opik SDK to get it to the point that you really need. And the reason I'm explaining all this, it's because when I started to getting tired of using synthetic data sets that were leading to nowhere, I thought, okay, what if I give Claude Code a skill to use a headless version of my agent and simulate traces
Okay.
based on the work in progress on the branch that I'm working on. And every time I'm going to touch the prompt or the skills of the agent I work on, I have a hypothesis, I have an idea that I start the session with, and I started telling Claude Code, find evaluators that are hitting these constraints. If not, create them. But before creating them, try to check traces from production, historical
Okay.
traces, to see if there's really a cluster or not. So maybe I can just create it for this testing in particular, but not leave it as an always on evaluation that I will have in production.
Okay. Okay. That's really interesting. And what do you actually generate with Cloud Code? You generate the input. So basically, you use Cloud Code to analyze current traces to understand what type of inputs to generate for your system, like to find all kinds of adversarial attacks that might create edge cases.
Yes, basically, I keep always fighting with Claude Code to
Mm.
research and do grounded and research backed decisions in that sense. So basically, I tell it to simulate traces by running this headless agent. In this case, the trace simulation is the input. Um, but I also have other things, which is why you need to make it read the work in progress for the project code base, I mean.
So your process is that at the beginning of your project or feature, you define a set of evals,
Yeah,
like those element judges or other type of evals,
sure.
based just on code. And the process that you showed us with gathering the traces and defining the data set and all of that doesn't configure the metrics. You just use those pre-configured evals to
Hmm.
test how well it performs on those traces, right? That's like
Yes,
the connection between the two.
exactly. Yes.
How well does it work?
I mean, I have a testing account with our backend API, so
Okay.
I make it test if I want to go full aggressive and adversarial, I make it test stuff that doesn't exist, hallucinated stuff. But if I want to just test for real the evaluation and make more the happy path, I make it grab some real data from the testing
Hmm.
API account that I have from WordPad, and then do the the actual simulation with real data.
Now let's talk about the hardest part of doing AI evals, which is getting your AI system into the right state. In other words, emulating the right context for your agentic evals harness.
I would say 90% of the tools of this agent are API calls.
Okay.
Um, when I said earlier that the agent can almost do everything that the SaaS can do, that's how it goes. It's wrapping, it's calling the API with its credentials and authentication. So when I simulate the traces and I give this possibility to Claude Code, Claude Code has a token to actually do the API calls.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you do some sort of integration test where it actually has access to the API. You don't mock this. You actually go. Okay. And when it does the API calls, what it does more exactly, it does like you can like recreate from scratch scenarios, or the third party that it accesses has its own state as well. If you get my question, right? So basically now the state is not in your database necessarily, is in the third party. How do you ensure that the third party state is what you expect?
It's not a third party because I'm hitting the internal backend.
Mm,
So
okay.
and we are using a staging test mocked account
Okay.
that has data, but I when I was explaining earlier this research, make sure that if you want to go adversarial, you can force errors and ask about, for example, OKRs that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to make the happy path or really test if this would work in a more normal scenario, hit the API for these goals or these OKRs or these teams that we know that this in this account they exist. And also we are injecting before starting up the agent in the container, we are calling the API and injecting user information. So the agent can talk, can say, "Hi Paul, do you want to check goals from the coding AI team?" So it has
Okay.
that injected context, and this is included in the simulation
Okay. Yeah.
for the data that we are using in that API in particular.
So and you and you inject this data before running the test, and then you clear it up, like similar to, I know,
It's injected in
fixtures in
the
classic tests.
no, it's not working as an integration or PyTest kind of fashion. It works as an actual, as if you were testing the agent for real. But the
Mm-hmm.
only thing here is that before loading the agent, we are making some calls, injecting in some system prompt sections,
Okay. Okay.
and when the agent runs in the headless skill that Cloud Code uses, it's running as if it's running for real. And yeah, we're basically testing production proxy behaviors.
Yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense. So basically, you mock everything at your system prompt level and don't worry that much about the third party.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy to mock your data, because ultimately the prompt is the only thing that LM sees. So it makes sense like to put the context patch there. Now let's see where an observability and evals tool such as Opik fit into the picture. That idea of letting Claude like analyzing traces and finding potential inputs, that's really dope. Like that's I should definitely start doing that. It's because yeah, you can like look around your data, label it, understand what's going wrong, but actually coming up with new inputs, that's like super time consuming and I don't know, energy consuming especially.
Hmm.
Like you need good hours to do that. Yeah, we'd love to see your code on this. Awesome. And then before moving on into this strategy in more depth,
Hmm.
I would love to hear like where does Opik integrate into this architecture?
So the main eval-driven development thing that I've been working on, I say thing because it's too experimental for now to call it the skill or the official whatever. The eval-driven development relies on the OPI on the Opik API. It's highly coupled.
Okay.
The MCP from Opik, this is personal opinion. I don't know if it's a priority to prove it because I've seen it quite limited for many of use cases that I would have loved to use it for, and it kind of pollutes the context a lot when you want to get a couple traces. So it's really hard to work with, and the API is way better. So
Okay.
this process is highly coupled to the API to get traces, analyze threads, which are in this case the conversation level, not just the trace, and also check evaluators, calibrate them if in case something is off, and update the evaluators, of course.
Okay.
I also use it to create datasets.
Now it's time to finally get hands-on. Alejandro will share his screen and show us his evals setup.
So let me jump into the kind of a skill decision flow. This is the eval-driven development. I will share the link so you can have it. So basically, you already kind of had a spoiler earlier with something you said, which is the adversarial. I call it aggression. How aggressive you want the simulated traces to be.
Yeah,
Let-
that's
I will jump into that. But basically, this skill this skill ecosystem is scanning your agent project. I tested it with OpenAI and Anthropic SDKs and with Agno, which are the things I use the most. Don't know how reliable it could be with LangChain. That's something I need to explore. But as long as the Opik API is not broken, the other things can be adapted with scripts along the way. So basically, it's generating a session kind of a session definition. This means what topic are we working with, what is the approach we want to take, what are we trying to test in this branch on this repo, and then it will scan the project, the agent project that you have, to see if there's something that it already knows about in your internal session history, or if it's from scratch. And based on that, well, in the skill, I still need to find a better name, but the promises are what are the prompt? What is basically the agent definition? What is the agent trying to solve, basically? It will scope it to find what are the regressions to go for, the things to test, and what the agent is trying to do. And then it will get into what I call the modes. Basically, you have mode one, which is you use Claude Code to scope what evals you have. If you don't have evals, it will create them. And then you can decide if you leave them as always on evals on production or not.
Okay.
And it will hit those evals with simulated traces 10, 20, 50, the long you can wait, or your Claude Code subscription or API usage billing can handle. You can have different opinions here, but I really like mode 1 because it will just hit evaluators for simulated traces. I usually run 30 traces. It's not a huge sample dataset, but sometimes you're tweaking a small prompt section and you don't need, I personally think you don't need 500 or 1,000 synthetic traces to test that kind of thing.
Yeah. Basically, you do this just to test, I don't know, one feature, let's say, or one sub feature, one part of the feature. Yeah, that makes sense.
I can in parallel show you an example. This is with the Substack author agent that I have only open. For example, this agent needs the publication URL from Substack to fetch data. And in this particular example, I was testing, okay, I had the prompt to ask for the publication URL, but it was always asking for it on every new trace on the session. Okay, don't do that. Do it when it's strictly necessary. And this was supposed to be hitting a particular evaluator that we had defined for this experiment. But as you can see, this is a small change, but you don't need to. I personally think you don't need 500 traces. It's something I mostly use. I have an MCP for Substack meant for Substack authors, which can get you articles, notes, can check comments, and it has some skills embedded to analyze articles, analyze notes, and suggest you what to write about next or what is working to keep making more of that, basically. This is the mode that I usually use for this approach. From time to time, I do a full sweep of the system prompt and harness, and I touch a lot of things. That's when I get to this mode 2, where it starts the same way. It will look for the evals, or it will target all of them if you're changing a lot of things. It will run the scenarios. Here you can see that it has smoke checks because it's okay. I will do a couple runs to see if there's something awful that I didn't consider. I will fix it before doing the big one, the big sample. And then it will put all the simulated traces in a data set to analyze if the coverage is good enough to then run an experiment that will trigger the evaluations. This always starts with the simulation. So let me do the end-to-end explanation. The API is the last part. The API, sorry, the pull request. Okay, the good thing about it is that I use tags for everything, so then I can.
Okay, and this tag is like a feature tag, like or a branch name or something like that?
Yeah, I try to, when I say I try, the skill is supposed to do it, but then sometimes it improvises. But this particular example, multi-turn coherence. Let me go there. So in this one, I created what this multi-turn coherence is analyzing. It's how the multi-turn conversations and how when you say something like, okay, summarize these articles, or I want to know about these notes, how that coherence holds along multi-message conversations. So that's what I was playing around with here.
Okay.
It's hitting all the evaluators, like kind of a composite approach, but mainly targeting that all the evaluators are in a good spot when having longer conversations that go beyond just one message. It's kind of high level. This is more experimental, but it's something I test a lot in production in WordPad. When evaluators, if you just lead them based on the trace level, they're usually fine. But when you want to tackle history evaluation in a 5, 10, 20 message conversation, That's where they start to fail. So this is an experiment with that kind of approach in this substack author agent small project.
Okay.
But I mean, the spirit goes in that direction.
What more exactly starts to fail? Like your Claude Code simulation, your evals, or what part of the system more exactly doesn't
Depends
work? That
depends on context. I mean, on context on when you start hitting the context window, when you ask something, it called a lot of tools. You start populating the context window. Then on the 10th message, you're hitting what I heard
oh
the dump
okay.
zone. I heard the dump zone definition. That's the kind of thing that this multi-turn coherence is trying to test. So when you say something like, okay, let's work with this, or let's do that, the agent is not like, what do you mean by that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. So you meant like the application itself starts to fail because, as you explained, you hit
Exactly.
context limitations. Okay, yeah, that
Exactly.
makes a lot of
Here you
sense.
have, well, it went really adversarial and heavy on this too, because you can see it went over a
Yeah.
minute calling tools, and you have a consider. This is a small agent, this project, but in production in WordPad, I saw I was actually analyzing implementing caching because I saw 200K total tokens on a single trace, which was
Oh,
from a 20 message
okay.
conversation of for example, this user. I'm trying to hate that particular user. It's getting close enough because he doesn't use the agent that much, but when he does, he asks, okay, scan 50 teams, get me all the OKRs, and the agent will push back. I cannot do that. That's too much, which is good. It's prompted to push back, but it will offer, I can do it progressively. So I can give you something, then I can do it in 17 tables so that you can copy paste. And the user is,
Okay.
okay, fine. That's good. That's a good reaction to this multi-turn coherence. But then on the trace number 21, you are paying a lot of money if you don't cache it properly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm hitting very similar situations. And to properly anchor people in this example, like with your Substack author agent,
Mhm.
what's your end goal? What do you want to achieve?
What the agent does, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's something I mostly use. I have an MCP for Substack meant for Substack authors, which can get you articles, notes, can check comments, and it has some skills embedded to analyze articles, analyze notes, and suggest you what to write about next or what is working to keep making more of that, basically. I use it. I use the MCP a lot. I have a local version of this agent that I use embedded into my Obsidian and Claude Code setup. So basically, all the things that I put together, all the cohesive and consistency across different articles that I write, that is what this agent is meant to help.
Oh, that's dope. And how well does it work?
I
Sounds
mean,
really awesome.
so far it's helping me a lot. And when you combine the MCP and this agent with the Obsidian wiki links and all the relationship of your nodes, it gets really amazing. At some point to you need to do. I think you said this in one of your articles when you talk about Brown agent. It's called.
Yeah.
But you need to put the real taste and the creative remaining 10% to make this worth it. Otherwise, it will just come up with stuff based on research, and then if you don't have really good ideas, it will be generic what you get from it. But yeah, this is this is basically the use case. It's meant for Substack authors mostly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's dope. Is it open source or is
It's right now it's meant to run locally. The project is open.
okay? Like the code itself is it
Yeah.
open
I mean,
source?
this is public.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought it's
But
just the evils part of it. But awesome.
no.
Yeah.
These PRs are executing the eval driven development on top of this project. Yeah. So basically, coming back to the end-to-end piece, these were all run executed by the simulation part of Claude Code using the skill. And then as a second step, Claude Code will check if there are the tool calls and the tool outputs are present in the output somewhere. If not, it will do well, actually, it doesn't have it here. It was an error. Let me find one that it has. So the demo effect. You expect something to be in the right place. It's not. Okay. Here, another example. So, okay, what happened here?
Yeah, maybe it's just lag.
Yeah, but maybe it has too much to load and it's taking time.
Yeah.
Okay. So in here it looked all the spans call and it added them in a metadata part to collect all the tools calls and the outputs from the specific from specific spans. So in this way, we can get to the next step, which are the datasets. And in here, these are also tags. Let's see, return coherence.
Okay.
It populated the dataset with those traces following this structure: system, the user message, system response, and then the trace metadata. I try expanding with AI because it could be really cool, but I cannot really get it to be compliant with simulating only trace metadata of things that are showing up in the seed data.
Yeah, that's tough. From my experience, the only thing that works with expanding with AI are your inputs.
Yeah, input and output. Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried test suites. We can talk about them. I tried briefly, and yeah, I could expand it a lot because they were quite simple setups.
Awesome. Yeah, this is super cool so far. Would love to see the whole example.
And yeah, and last part. Okay, so far everything I've been showing you has been uh, created with Cloud Code using the API. I'm not touching any of this in the UI. I'm just leading the conversation, and that's it. And then it gets to an experiment, which is this one. Okay. This experiment was hitting all the evaluators that we have, which is how complete the content is. If it is talking about metrics like analyzing the article performance, how accurate it is when getting the tool output and talking about it, when it ranks, when analyzes articles or notes, how ranking them quality-wise. That's some evaluators that came up from the first conversation when there were no evaluators here.
Okay.
And basically the experiment is using the dataset, targeting evaluators, and then when you read the scope is slopes, when you get to the distribution on how fast or
That's all.
good they work. Yeah.
So your process is that at the beginning of your project or feature, you define a set of evals, like those element judges or other type of evals based just on code. And the process that you showed us with gathering the traces and defining the data set and all of that, doesn't configure the metrics. You just use those pre-configured evals to test how well it performs on those traces, right? That's like
Yes,
the connection between the two.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, you can see prompt hygiene after and prompt hygiene before. It's an awful definition, but I was trying to clean up a lot of noisy stuff in the instructions that accumulated over time. And I ran two data sets. I mean, two experiments uh, um, over the same scope, so they could be compared against the specific evals that were defined here, and so then I could have this comparison conclusion. When I went through this with Claude Code, we started discussing, okay, let's deep dive on why the after is not performing really well in tool called parameter inference, which this eval means that the agent over conversation should know what ID to pass in the tool endpoint to call it properly, which sometimes gets lost and fabricates IDs.
Okay. And ideally, these two shouldn't have looked like the same in terms of metrics.
I was using GPT 5.1, so I can answer that. That doesn't necessarily should look the same because it's quite unstable how it works. But what I tried, the after has a different prompt. I did we did exploration with the before, then we changed stuff, and then we target the similar evaluations with the changes.
Okay. So AI evals is a complex problem. So let's explore the current limitations of AI evals and how tools such as Opik can help us solve them.
It's an AI-driven process based on an AI-driven process. So you have two layers of how much you can leave it autonomously do stuff, or how much attention you need to pay. So you can work on something else while this is doing the simulations, but I would advise to be there in the moment, auditing and taking the time to see what's going on, which is a limitation because you are locked at some point if you want to get it right. And also something else, it's the scale.
Yeah.
If you want to go to 500 traces data sets, it will take time. You'll need to wait if you can pay for the tokens to get that ready. But yeah, since I don't target really big samples, it's not that much of a problem for me. But sometimes I want to do bigger changes, and it's kind of I don't really want to make a decision based on 100 or 150 or 200 traces only. Uh, but yeah, those are the main ones. This whole process is supposed to end in a PR. So that's what I think what I was showing earlier. We did a simulation, dataset, experiment, or just simulation and a small subset through conversation. And that is supposed to have a proven PR backed by an experimentation approach, and have details on what was the scope and what were the findings, what is the change, and how this was reproduced basically. That's one thing. So I don't, when I said earlier, just dumping a data set, running an experiment, and then just trying to figure out what to do. In this case, the figure out what to do is supposed to end up in a PR. On the on the second thing about this having kind of an agent that can analyze traces and make decisions on code changes or iterate for them, I would really like that as long as it can test the full harness. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that if these new features that Opik added, if they can be driven by an agenda or something I want to target, if it is an agent, I guess I would prompt for it. But the main thing here is that you should have a hypothesis or something that you want to test and validate and and running
Oh yeah,
the
totally,
experiment with,
totally.
and everything should lie around that. And
Yeah, it is, for example, on their new latest test suits,
mm,
which ultimately is still like a set of tests that you want to evaluate against.
mm, mm,
And if a particular test fails, then the agent looks around and sees why it fails and how to optimize the code. So it's still like
mm.
a pretty similar process, but directly embedded into Opik itself. Now Alejandro will get into one of my favorite topics, which is knowing when you've added too much complexity, which is an increasing problem now due to agentic coding and AI agents in general. When did you realize that you added too much? Like, what drive you to add all those evals and
Okay,
what made you
what
realize
created the
to
problem,
stop?
when I realized
Yeah,
that it
yeah,
was a problem.
exactly.
Okay, I every growing project you keep collecting debt. And when it comes to AI, everyone is so excited. So they want AI to do everything, even things that we cannot really do. Uh, and if there's no gatekeeping progress, uh, everything goes through. That's in. I am. I am. I would say half. It's half and half, like 50-50%. It's on me, and then it's on other stakeholders in the company. But at some point, the failure modes were started to be quite dumb, quite stupid, and there
Okay.
were overlapping instructions in different parts, something contradicting something that was said. Depending on the model, you will have over triggers. I've been reading a lot about like models for Sonnet 4.6 from Claude. You don't really have to say don't do this. You need to talk in positive, for example. Uh,
Yeah,
or if you
yeah.
say never, or if you use all caps, it doesn't really work. And if you mention something a couple of times, it kind of freaks out.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Uh, start, I read and started researching and saved some skills to audit prompts in the code. And that's when I started auditing more and realizing that I needed to strip down a lot of stuff. And every 2 months, I cut down the system prompts
Okay.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good strategy that also if you develop this stuff with AI, they tend just to add stuff and add stuff
Mm,
and you never cuts down and
mm,
you need to have to be in this constant state of mind that you actually need to prompt them and say, okay, let's start cutting down and cutting down. I have similar issues as
mm.
well. Now, as the final take of this case study is not to run AI evals. So let's hear from Alejandro more about this. What eval strategy implemented that ended up costing too much money?
We are on credits, so it's not a money problem, but it would have been. I At some point I thought that having always on 100% sample online evaluations was important for productions. Uh, then I started cutting down some of them because there was no risk in evaluating some things. Like, what is the greatest risk of checking if the agent is not mentioning an ID to the user? Okay, I don't need
Yeah,
to test this 100% of the time, or
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't need to test it in all conversations. I could look for a pattern, or
yeah.
that's the thinking process on the eval recalibration. And yeah, we had it was credits for now, but we had a bill. It was like a 2K a month just by triggering evaluations.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah. These pay as you go uh subscriptions are really dangerous at scale.
yep, yeah,
I'm always like it's so easy to miss something and
mm,
everything to like go at such a huge scale and the bill just
exactly.
pops in 1 second. You have thousands of dollars
Yes,
in debt.
we need to explore Chinese models more often, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that the strategy of adding a maximum number of credits on something is a
Mm.
lot safer. That at least, okay, you consume an amount of money, but at least you consume an amount that you know you can afford,
Yeah,
rather
predictable.
than just going
Yeah, yeah,
crazy. So with this, we've wrapped up the case study, and I want to thank Alejandro for showing us his AI evals.